So Connor Steinbrook is the CEO of Investor Army, founder of the Wolfpack, which has over 3,200 real estate agents globally, a massive organization within EXP. You have such a cool story from going from the top to the bottom, back to the top again, being a ranked poker player, a investor, business owner. There's so many things I want to talk to you about today. And you also seem like somebody who balances very, very well your life with business. When a lot of people are kind of all in on certain things, you really seem to have a really good balance. So I'm super excited to really pick your brain, man, because you are a wealth of information, and just have a real cool conversation with you today, Connor. So the first thing I want to get started with is, I thought this would be a cool question to start off. Who motivated and who inspires Connor Steinbrook?
A lot of people. You're gonna have motivation from different areas of your life, from different people. So don't think you need to get it all from one. Starting from my parents, I have great parents. They didn't provide a lot of financial, blessings for me. We grew up, I always had food on the table, never had to worry about being clothed. We grew up in just a regular middle-class family, but they taught me morals, values, and ethics that are lost in the world today. And I truly believe that everybody's out there chasing skill sets and all sorts of things out there that they think make them successful. But a lot of times I tell people, the morals and values and integrity that you have behind the scenes is what's going to have you the rewards in the eye of the public. But obviously I met my parents, my faith system, and then just along the way, I've had a lot of great mentors that unselfishly gave to me. And so I had local mentors in my investing business. I had online mentors. So you're going to have mentors in different areas. They're not just all ones that you have an actual relationship personally, but we talk a lot about on the calls. Napoleon Hill motivated me big time when I realized that I wasn't thinking, and that my thinking could control my actions, and my actions can control my future. So I followed a lot of online mentors when I finally got into personal education, self-growth. Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy. And then now the modern ones, I have a lot of respect for Ed Mylett. Watched Patrick Bet-David a lot when he was coming up, and I was following PBD's channel way before he was PBD and people even really knew who he was. And so I've had a lot of great mentors along the way. And then I like seeing people that just in general go for it in life, that are, committed and convicted in whatever they're chasing. It doesn't matter. I don't care what your goal is, like whether it's bass fishing, what we're talking about, or, business, or it's, some people don't have financial success goals, or, you could be like Mother Teresa or Gandhi or, Martin Luther King. Like, you're going to take inspirations from different people. Bruce Lee, I study Bruce Lee a lot. Arnold Schwarzenegger. When I got into wanting to study wealth, I guess this is the last thing I'll end on this point. When I decide what I want to do, I find the best at it. So when I decide I want to become wealthy, what did I do? I started studying the wealthiest people in the world: Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, and I put their faces up on the walls in my room, so I could always see their faces to remind me what I was chasing. And then when I wanted to increase my physical body and have that physical image, I had pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger on the wall and Bruce Lee, and so on. So find what you want to do, figure out what you want to do, then find the best in the world at it, study them aggressively in how they did it, and follow in their footsteps as a starting point. And then along the way, find people that are doing that in your local area. Let's say you want to go into CrossFit or whatever it is, but just find people that have been where you want to go and get in proximity with them as fast as possible. And it's going to save you a ton of time.
Such an insightful answer to start off, man. I love it. And I really like and appreciate where you're going with that, with the not just finding one person that inspires you. You're seeing the whole avenue of kind of who you want to become. And it's like finding somebody physically that inspires you for that aspect of life. And then finding, like you said, the Gandhi, because everybody's goals are going to be different. It's like trying to pull from so many different inspirations and kind of combining it into who you want to be as a person, because that's going to be different for every individual.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, talking about balance issues here. You don't become high performance or at the elite level of anything without sometimes having a lack of balance in some areas. So it's very common that you may see someone that's like very financially successful, but you don't want to end up being like that person as their character, the quality of the, the ethics and that type of stuff. And it's very common that you see someone that has the best physical body that you want to aspire to have, but they may not have any finances, and so you're not going to get everything from one person. And also when you do get something from one person, don't judge them for the other fallings or their lackings, but see people for their best and what they have to offer and what they're sharing to offer. But it's going to be a lifelong journey. You're going to have people coming out of your life personally, and then also people that you follow. And now, so it's just really look for what you're looking for. And that's also how our brain operates. It's going to find what you're looking for, but identify it first and then seek it out second and act on it third.
I love that, man. I love that. So in there, you said once you decided to become wealthy, that's when you started to really pursue and find people that that inspired you. At what point in your life, Connor, did you make that decision and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the one that changes this for my family, for my legacy. At what point in your life do you remember that you kind of made that decision consciously?
Yeah, is when I put it on pen and paper and wrote it down. So a lot of people want things and they can still get to where they want to by being unconsciously competent. So there's what's called a competency quadrant. And so let's say like you playing baseball a lot when you're little and you just play a lot with your friends and you get good at hitting home runs. Well, you're doing that unconsciously. Now, as you get older, you're going to have the conscious understanding of it. Conscious competency, meaning I know why I'm hitting the home runs. I know how I'm squaring my hips up. I know how I'm turning, and you can teach it to someone else. And so when I was coming up in life, I think a lot of people, they all want to be successful. They all want the stuff, the house, the cars. They all want the physical body. They all want the things. And sometimes they start to have some of these things. So like what happened to me when I started playing online poker, which was kind of my first breakthrough. I was, I guess, unconsciously competent. I was getting where I was making a decent amount of money, and I was playing I was one of the top online poker players in the world, but I did it just through repetition. I just played all the time and I just got really good. I couldn't really explain or teach somebody how I was doing what I was doing. Now, I also lost all that and it fell apart, which we can go in that story. But that was never really like an intentful plan. That just was an accidental happening. So I went off to college in 2003. And when I was a freshman in college, the online poker boom happened. And I was sitting in my college dorm room and I knew I wanted stuff. I knew I wanted a better life. I saw people have money around me. And what happened was I watched Chris Moneymaker win the World Series of Poker on World Series on ESPN. And he had won a satellite tournament, which is a smaller buy-in tournament to win a bigger seat. And I was just like, I can do that too. And it was just the first thing that I adopted to I saw a path to run to get to where I wanted to. But it wasn't like I woke up one day and said, okay, what do I want to become? How am I going to become that person? And I want to become a professional poker player. It was a hobby, became a profession. And I just naturally built off of events in my life that built to that point. Now, what happened to me was for 8 years, I did that professionally. And then on April 15, 2011, government regulation kicked in and shut those websites down overnight without warning. Almost a decade of my life disappeared overnight. And I gambled off the rest of my money. I played blackjack and craps because I didn't have emotional control at that time. And I was under what's called mega tilt. And I had to move back home with my parents in my late 20s after having diamond watches and sports cars and $1,000 nights at the bars with my friends and had everything that we would think we wanted. And then I ended up living at home with my parents trying to figure out what was going on in my life. It got to a very dark moment in my life. For years, I call those my lost years. And then I came across, Think and Grow Rich. And that made me realize that I can construct my future by the thoughts that I think today. And it really hit hard with me that we're the only living thing in this world. We're the only thing in this world, living or not, that has the ability to have conscious thought, meaning we can choose our thoughts. And if we can choose our thoughts today in the present, we can impact where we show up in the future. And I realized I hadn't been thinking. And so maybe if I start thinking and I think a little bit more, maybe I'll show up where I want to be a little bit more and not where I don't want to be. And so a lot of people don't realize where they're at presently is a direct result from the thoughts, the ideas, decisions that they've been making throughout their life. And so after reading Think and Grow Rich, I decided that I was going to create a definite purpose and I was going to become wealthy. And this was a choice at this point. This wasn't an accidental happening through life events that I acted off of. It was a conscious decision to create wealth. And everything I built from then on for the past little over a decade or so was a design plan that I put on pen and paper. And I still have, all my goal cards and stuff. Like you can see, I have these with me at all times. I write down exactly where I'm going. And I know exactly how I'm going to get there. And I show up there just like a GPS knows exactly where they're going. They know the destination. And most people do not have a destination in mind. That's why they show up to an unknown destination. And the world is built in a way where you do not want to show up in the unknown destination. It's going to be one that you don't want to show up in. So you better design the future that you want and create it. So our thoughts are, I tell people, the paintbrush of our future. So you can't paint a picture on the wall visually unless you see it in the mind. Like, you don't just have a painting on the wall with a barn and a river running through it and trees. You had to see it to paint it. The same thing with your future. Unless it's seen in the eye of the mind first, you can't get to where you're going. So your future is not going to be what you want unless you design it and you paint that with your thoughts. This is really what people should realize. And as they do, they start painting that future.
And that's just such a powerful statement there to really hit home the power of the mind. And I think so many people will try to tame things around them. Like, it's like, we'll try to get our body in check. We'll try to have, people will try to have their house, I guess, in order, or like relationships in check. But it's like, so much starts with getting the mind in check. And it's such a hard thing to even realize. You got to be so self-aware to even get to that point to where you realize, I need to control my own thoughts, because if you just let your mind run wild, it can eat you alive. And just like you were saying, when you were kind of running on tilt, I'm sure you were almost working with a fairly unconscious thought process at that time. Because I've also been there too, where like I also love gambling. And I think that's why I do love business, because it's like every day is a gamble in business. There's no guarantees, but you can start doing things that create certainty. There's certain actions that you can take that kind of start creating certainty in your life. But that's one thing that I do love. And I actually want to talk a little bit more about the poker thing, because I find that fascinating. Did you play mostly online poker, or did you do a lot of in-person games too?
I did both. So I went to the University of Oklahoma. So we had Indian casinos all around us. So I started playing this little hole in the wall. I think it's called Thunderbird Casino. And there's just literally like 2 tables going. And so I like the social aspect of it, and actually the physical, playing with people. There's a social element to it. And online poker is more just like straight competition, where it's just like I'm in a room by myself in a dungeon grinding away. Yeah. So what built my skill set was online poker for sure. Because the volume of hands is very similar to how technology like EXP merged into brick and mortar business models. Poker did the same thing. Usually you're very slow to deal the cards at a casino, move the chips around. You can maybe play a few hundred hands a day. And then online, you could play multiple tables at a time. And then on an individual table, live versus online, you could play a multitude of hands, like 20x times as many hands, because it's this immediate system. Right. So what happened was the online poker boom started, and also you could buy in at much smaller amounts, play penny tables, $5 tournaments, where in a traditional casino, they have to pay dealers, they have to pay staff. You can't have that small of a buy-in. So there's not games big enough that the learning curve for someone that's starting with a lot of money can get in and play that hand volume before they go broke. So a lot of times you're starting out at even like a 1-2 game. It's a lot of money for a lot of people that may only have a little bit extra disposable income to play. So I was able to start playing for penny stakes, play a lot of hand volume really quick, and study a lot of patterns. And business and sports and anything in life is about pattern recognition. So do things a lot really short in a short time, and you'll see patterns. But so I did play live poker quite a bit. But most of like my success and skill sets came from online poker. But what a lot of my skill sets came from that I took forward in business later, that was from live poker, was understanding body language from people, understanding how people's emotions change them. So to go back, how people can get on tilt. I learned a very valuable lesson in business that I've taken forward, which is we have 2 different mindsets we make decisions out of. We have our emotional mindset, and then we have our logical mindset. And if I was operating out of a logical mindset, I wouldn't have gambled all my money off after my online poker career disappeared. But what happened was it shifted me with what's called tilt. So tilt is an emotional shifting, or it's a shifting of your mindset from a logical mindset to your emotional mindset, where you're going to make suboptimal decisions that you would have otherwise if you weren't in that mindset. So for example, let's say I had 2 black aces, and I'm get a guy in a hand, and we're all the way to the last card on the river, and now there's 4 diamonds on the board. Well, now I have pocket aces, but there's 4 diamonds on the board, and there's a 4 card straight. So it's highly unlikely I have the hand. Now, let's say he goes all in, and I make a big laydown, which means I fold, and I give up my rights to even win the hand. And then that other player shows me a 7 deuce, but it's a black offsuit 7 deuce, which is the worst hand he could have. Now, what happens there is I have two different decisions to go forward into the next hand. I have the emotional mindset or the logical mindset. And why did he show those cards? To tilt me. He wanted to shift me off my game. This is why people trash talk in sports and business, because now I'm embarrassed. Everybody's laughing at me. Now my logical mindset would say, okay, it's just a hand. Next hand, let me play the best optimal hand I can play. Right. Let's look at my bet sizing, my table positioning, the timing of how the chips are moving and how people are making decisions. And I keep on making decisions as I was before that happened. Now my emotional mindset says, this dude embarrassed me, took all my money, and I'm going to go after him. And then what do? I try to find a spot that I'm forcing that spot, and I'm forcing a spot that I shouldn't be forcing. And I lose he busts me again. I lose my stack again to him. And I'm going after a specific player instead of playing my optimal game. And this can happen in all sorts of ways, but in business, you're going to have problems. Title companies are going to blow deals, and deals are going to fall out. All sorts of weird things can happen. So just know you will have mistakes, problems that you make on your own that others make around you that you're going to have to deal with. And it's okay to have problems, but the compounding of one problem into other problems is where the highest level business owners can have that control. So you're going to have all these chaotic things happening throughout your journey, but yeah, that one problem that comes up that you couldn't control. Now, how do I keep this in a box so that it doesn't cause more problems around me in personal or business? So let's say like you have a tenant that just goes nuts and destroys your property, or you have an HVAC go out. Do you take that in one moment, or do you take that one problem and compound it and you go home and fight with the wife or fight with a friend or family? Or do you take that into another deal where your frustration causes you to blow another deal or lose a client there? So it's the compounding of problems. It's the problem, not a problem itself, which a lot of people don't realize, that they slow their own growth down, especially in like a fast-paced game like poker. You can have everything going right, and all of a sudden you lose a big hand. Before you know it, you lost all your money or end up at the blackjack table. So just know that these will come up, and you have to have the awareness that when these problems arise, you're shifting from your logical mindset to your emotional mindset. And when you're in the emotional mindset, you're way more likely to make mistakes, cost yourself money, and have major setbacks in time from where you're trying to actually get to, which is your goals.
Yeah, there's so many correlations between poker and even sports, like you're saying, and business too, right? Where it seems like the best mindset to have in the majority of these situations is almost a stoic mindset, right? Where it's like, you don't let your mind take control, because like you said, when you're going on tilt, you're now just letting the emotions run wild, and you're no longer thinking logically, where you probably shouldn't go all in on this next hand, but it's just an emotional decision because you're like, I want to get that guy, and you're almost playing by chances, and just the logic starts to go at the door. And like you said, that happens so much in business too. There's so many correlations to poker and to business as well. Another thing that I find a lot of correlations that there is in, and we were talking about this right before we got recording, is hunting and business success as well. And I always love finding correlations in things. I always love trying to find, it's like, why do I enjoy doing this, and how does this complement the rest of my life? I try to find a narrative to bring it all in. But you were just talking about something, and I'd love to hear more about it, about how hunter-gatherers make great business owners, and yeah, could you touch on that a little bit about that theory, because that was really good.
Yeah, so we're in February here in Texas, so I know you guys are way up there, but it's 84 degrees yesterday, so that's why I'm sunburned like a lobster. And we're talking about what my hobby is, which is I go fishing, and I just grew up fishing with my dad when I was little. I'm not sure if that was really why I was attached to it, because I spent time with my father, or what made it, or why we have our goals and dreams in us. Why does someone want to be a musician or an artist, or why does someone want to go fishing all the time? Like, that just was built inside me at a young age. And it's been a lifelong hobby. But one of the common things that you'll see in the high level performance world of sports and business and anything that has competition to it, a lot of times the ones that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but a lot of times you see hyper successful people, they hunt and fish. That's why you go to like wealthy people's house and you see they got like giraffe heads and lions, full-size lions in their house. So one of the things that I do is I fish, like not just like sitting on a dock, like with, like a bobber in a chair, sitting back and be kicked up. Like we're actually out there getting it done, like casting 5,000 times a day, like really going after there. And it's a competitive sport that also I took from, I played sports a lot normal coming up, football, baseball, basketball, but something I could take forward that's competitive. And it's also exciting for me. But one of the reasons why I think you see a lot of very successful entrepreneurs also do something like that, hunting and fishing or outdoor activities, is the mindset of the hunter gatherer. And so if you think about back in the tribal days, who's going out there braving the sun, getting bit by mosquitoes and risking breaking bones and potentially not making it back home, and who's out there fighting lions and tigers and bears, and who's out there, chasing down antelope with spears and type of stuff. This is the competitive mindset, the one that went and brought that deer back to the tribe to feed them. Now we don't have to do that anymore. We can go to McDonald's and we can go to the grocery store and we can have Uber Eats bring us food. So what does this mind do? Well, this mind is in the DNA of these individuals, passed on from generation to generation because their fathers were that way, and then so on. And so now when you see them go into the business world, they're hyper competitive, and this is partly why business is a fight daily, and they go out there and they fight all the time. And it's just the mindset that attracts success a lot of times when you're in competition. And business is a world of competition. It's very similar to the sports world. And but that's why you see a lot of that. And also, I've used that to build a lot of relationships with some super high level entrepreneurs that are big into hunting and fishing as well, and shared that commonality with them. But I mean, you've seen this with Joe Rogan. We talked about, he's out there bow hunting and all sorts of names. You see The Rock, when you watch The Rock's Instagram, he's out there catching fish. He actually built a pond on his ranch that's stocked with fish just so he can go out there, because he's too busy to go to the lake. He just bought himself one. So it's hand in hand. Became successful in business because of that mentality and that mindset of how he operates, but also you can, do that later. But you see that pretty commonly.
So The Rock pretty well just built himself a big fish bowl and then put fish in it. See, that doesn't seem as exciting to me. Like if I was casting a line into a pond that I knew was fully loaded with fish and I caught one, I don't think I could even be proud. I don't think I'd even be proud of that. Now, that's coming from somebody who's not an avid fisher, but I do find fishing fascinating. What do you normally fish, Connor? Because I know that's a major hobby of yours, and I love watching that stuff. Like I like watching people's hobbies and what they're passionate about outside of business too, because it just adds so much more depth into who someone is. So when you're out there catching fish, first question is, what are you catching normally?
Yeah, so I go after largemouth bass. That's kind of like a big thing here in Texas. Okay. And I'll go deep sea fishing, and I'll go. I've caught everything and anything for the most part that a lot of people do, but like my sport is bass fishing, and I don't go out there and catch little ones. We're headhunters. We throw in 8-10 inch baits, going for 6 to 12 pound bass. But yeah, so like I fish a lot of public lakes too, so that's also what makes it the challenge. Because fish, it's still always fun to catch a big one, even if it's in your backyard, but or say you built a tank inside your house or in your swimming pool, it's still fun. But going out there, catching them on a lake that other people don't catch them on, it's just another game or another competition that you have. So poker was a game, business is a game, fishing is a game. And then I'd urge you guys, even if you don't want to hunt or fish, find a hobby outside, something that's active and physical. Talking about balance. Yeah. A lot of my, people ask, how do I stay relatively in shape pretty consistently throughout the year? Well, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm fishing. So I'm standing all day, I'm moving all day, I burn a lot of extra calories. An average American just sits around in a chair all day, and I sit around in a chair plenty, trust me. But also it helps me keep my body moving and limber. I'm climbing in and out of boats, and a lot of times I'm not even on a boat. I'm walking around on the bank, climbing up mountains and hills and fishing and just being active. And you're going to have chronic pain issues and all sorts of issues if you guys don't keep your physical body moving in different directions, moving left, right, back, forwards. I mean, think about how many of you guys have walked backwards in the past 10 years. Like, just think about it. Have you ever thought of it? You just stand there and walk backwards 100 yards. Like in sports, you run backwards, you practice backwards, you're practicing turning and left and right. And then people wonder why they have, neck issues and hip mobility issues and all sorts of lower back issues, because they sit in one position and your body fixes to that. So the more outdoor activities you do in your life, and the more physical you are. And then also it's just a way to get away from the cancer box that I sit in all day. So I got computer screens and lights and cell phones and all this stuff around me. And you'll notice the more you're outside, the more alive you feel. You'll forget that you're not some cyborg computer, but you're actually a human being that was created here. And you'll be more in touch with the world, and you'll look at the world differently. And when you take that different worldly approach back to the inside, this whatever thing we're in, the matrix, whatever we're in, you're gonna operate a little bit differently, and people are gonna see that too.
100%. I find being outside is and finding time to get outside is so critical to mental health. There's got to be a correlation of people's mental health versus how much time they spend outside. Because I know anybody that's like an outdoors type of person, like they're always so down to earth, and they have this calmness about them and like this peace. And I think that comes from just being outside, because nature is humbling when you're looking around and you're looking at these trees that are hundreds of years old, or you're on water that's been around for hundreds, if not millions of years, and these creatures, and just realizing like evolution, and even just getting outside and walking at night and looking up. And if you're somewhere that you can look at the stars and just realize how almost in a weird way, how insignificant everything that we have going on here, because there's all this other stuff happening outside of Earth too. And it's just like, it puts things right into perspective, and then it just puts you kind of like in the cycles. And I love going out, like, so right now I'm on day 52 of 75 hard. Most of my outdoor activities have been in the evening. So I'm going out pretty well, like right around between 8 and like last night I was out at like 10:30, and but it's such a nice way to relax, especially at the end of the day, and just to get out. And I've also been training for like marathons too. You spend a ton of time outside training for marathons, and then kind of talking about the physical aspect of like the mental health thing is like getting that. Finding something that takes you out of of your normal life, finding something that just almost puts you into this flow state. When I'm running, and I'm sure it's probably similar like fishing and stuff like that, or like even exercising, but when I'm outside running, I completely lose grips with almost all the things going on in my life, every problem, every issue, every single, I'm not thinking about the laundry, I'm not thinking about a deal, I'm not thinking about these clients, which I think is important every once in a while to pull yourself out of and put yourself in this like meditative flow state. And then once you come back, you're so refreshed, and it's almost like you just had an 8-hour nap. Like or even better, you're just energized. You're completely energized. So I love stuff like that, man. I think that stuff is so, so important and overlooked too. Like I know some people that think exercising is bad for you. I know some people that legit think that if you exercise or you run, that it's like, oh, your knees are going to be bad when you get older. It's like, everybody's going to be bad when they get older. But it's like, if you keep your body moving, then you'll probably be a little bit better.
Yeah, it's just the opposite. So like, I mean, imagine any of you guys go take a picture of the Grand Canyon and put it on your wall and stare at it, and then go out to the Grand Canyon, stand on the edge and stare over it, and see how you feel differently. See if there's just any difference right there. And then as far as like, is there any studies and stuff like that, as far as your physical activity, outdoor activity changing, your mental, we all know it changes your physical body, but what about the mental side? And this is especially someone up north, like you guys in Canada, like you guys have long winters, and it's a pretty morbid topic, but suicide rates go up, depression goes up, the longer you're trapped inside and stuck in a box.
I know we have social media and people feel like they're being social, but you need to get out and talk to people, and you need to see people face to face. And humans are community creatures. We need community, and that's why when you're in prison, when they're looking to punish the people, they put them in isolation. That's the punishment for the prisoners who aren't behaving. They isolate you. And there's a reason they do that, because it's not good. And it's it's something that makes people suffer. And that's, I feel so much better when I'm out talking to people. Like even this right here, like I love that I get to talk to you, but I would much rather do this in person. I would much rather do this in person, because there's even a different kind of like connection. Like I love that. Even right now, I've kind of got used to the Zoom call, and I've been able to appreciate it. But it was a major hurdle for me, because I was like, I don't like the Zoom calls. I don't like not being right in front of somebody, because I read so much from body language, and just like I can almost like feel people's energy when I'm right in front of them. Now I've learned to try to train my brain to do that more over Zoom calls. And what do you think about that? About Zoom calls versus like face-to-face interactions?
Yeah, you're losing that for sure. Let me touch on one thing real quick about being outside, and then we'll go into this. So another thing about being outside and going out there all the time is it's going to make you get outside your comfort zone. When you're sitting in a controlled climate, inside the same temperature, same environment, when you go out and get sunburned, you go get bit by bugs, you about David Goggins, you're going out there in the rain, the sleet, snow. It makes you get outside your comfort zone, and you build off of that. And so when it prepares you mentally to go into the business world where you're going to get outside your comfort zone, and most people are not prepared to win in business at the highest level because they're too comfortable. Their parents coddle them, they coddle themselves throughout their whole life. They're in a comfortable, it's the same environment, and they're stuck in that environment that's constant. There's no adversity. So like when I get, I've fallen in the lake in freezing water, I've, going out there and all sorts of environmental changes, this conditions you for the problems that life brings later. So when you get to those problems, you're like, I'm conditioned to it, and whereas most people, they get a problem, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle it. Now, when it comes to like communication, obviously we communicate in different ways. We communicate through the words we say, how we say those words, mean the delivery of those words, and then nonverbal body language communication. You get that when we're on a virtual conferencing like this, but you don't get the energy transference, because when you're speaking, words are a transference of energy. So when you're in person, you feel those words. So they've actually done studies where if you speak words over water, it changes the water molecule, and they have photos of these that you can see. If you speak a negative energy, like a bad word versus a good word over it, you're going to see that the water particle gets crystallized. I forget, it's a Japanese scientist that did it. I forget his name, but also
was that with like snowflakes? Was it a snowflake thing? I think
maybe snowflakes. Yeah,
I think I seen that study. Right, it like makes different crystallization patterns.
That's right. And so everything in this world is made of energy. So that's what the law of vibration states. So if you guys look in like Bob Proctor, law of vibration states that everything's moving, nothing stops moving. So this pen, it feels like it's solid, but it's not. If I looked at it under a very powerful microscope, you're going to see its molecules vibrating tightly together. Same with yourself. And so if you took a picture of a microphone, a can, a person, a dog, any living creature, everything has an energy rating off it. It's a spectral camera that you can use to take this picture. So when you guys are walking into a room, naturally you're radiating an energy around you that's not being able to be picked up by your eye, but we now have technology and cameras that can pick this up. And this is also why people attract or repel people away from them, by the energy of how they present themselves with. And you can feel this around people. That's why some people they're infectious and you want to be around them. And then some people, like a Karen, you're like, oh my gosh, this person is, as soon as they walk in the room, people split and purposely avoid them. It's just like a magnet, pulls stuff to you or repels stuff away from you. And so when we talk about, we did a call on Napoleon Hill, pleasing personality, the positive mindset. When you have a positive mindset and a positive mental attitude and a pleasing personality, you attract people to you. And then business, this is about bringing people to you, not just bringing them to you on the front side, but making sure they stay around you for long enough to build a business together through those adversities and problems that you're going to have. And so when you control your emotions and control, your frequencies and how your body operates by the thoughts that you think, that is why people feel a certain way around someone. They just feel more calm around you. They're going to feel, safe. This is why leaders, you say like you have the world hitting the fan, like say you're off the battlefield and bolts start flying and all of a sudden one leader's sitting there saying, no need to fear. I'm here. We're going this way. We're storming forward, and I'm taking the first bullet first. I'm in front of everybody, and you have one other stand next to you, going, "We're getting eaten alive. I'm freaking and then people are running away now because they lost the control of the environment based off their loss of control of their mental thoughts, and then the way they can control those thoughts because they're having a mental breakdown. And people see that, and that's going to transfer to them. That energy is going to move from the leader to the people around them, and they're going to push that. And before you know it, you have chaos and you're going to lose. And this happens in business and sports and anything in life. It happens within families. So it is important to stay in emotional control and have a logical mindset like we're talking about before, because if you lose control and you're operating emotionally, you can cause other people to panic around you, make worse decisions, and everything erodes around you.
Right. And I think that's a great segue to kind of talk about the Wolfpack, because that's exactly what you and Mike have kind of both done. Like one thing that I say is the culture in the Wolfpack is completely, it's just like irresistible. Like for me, it's like, this is the exact kind of culture that I love. I know Mike brings a lot of energy and he's very direct. And I love that because I have a military background, and it's like, I just like when people are just cutting through the crap, cut through the shit, and they're getting right to the point. And that to me is like exactly how I want to be spoken to. And that's how like I get energized. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that. And there's a lot of people that are afraid to kind of like lead in that style. But you and Mike have both created such an amazing culture within the Wolfpack. And it's like proven to create so many other amazing leaders too, because we have all these subcultures within the Wolfpack of amazing leaders. You have the Suman Kims, the Garths. There's so many endless examples of people who have created massive momentum and teams. And I think that is majorly to do with the way that you guys have created the culture. And like you said, it's the leadership. So it's that top down, and how important that is, that there's been just so much consistency between the both of you and creating certainty all the time with calls. And I guess so that's like throwing flowers at you, because I'm so happy to be part of the group. Also too, though, I guess, how did you guys figure this out? Like at what point were you like, here's all the things we need to do? Or did it all come together? Or did you guys make a plan and then just start powering forward? I'd love to hear more of like the origin story of how you believe you got to such a monumental point with the Wolfpack.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing is, I think like a lot of people think they want certain things, but they don't really want what they think they want. And so we live in this politically correct world where people think they don't want directness, and they think they want the answer that people are. And also on the communication side down, people are going to talk to people the way that they think they want to, kind of coddle their emotions and say the thing that's going to make them feel good and not what they need to actually hear. So for example, let's say you had a family member that was, very obese, that was actually putting their life in, on the line. And instead of, just saying it's okay, or pretending it's not existing, having a loving conversation, which is out of love, not being mean or anything, but it's like, hey, look, you have children, that you go on this pace, you're not going to, this is damaging your life expectancy. There's lots of problems that you can deal with that you're not thinking about long-term. That tough conversation is what most people don't want to have. They don't want to say the truth. That's why they're saying that the truth hurts. The truth does hurt until the truth is brought up into awareness and brought into reality. So where it hurts bad enough, people don't change. People don't change unless they're moving away from pain. Then if there's enough pain, they'll start to move away from it. But I think more people need to have direct communication instead of kind of this political correct talk that we're having and pretending that there's all sorts of sunshines, rainbows, and fairies. And it's not. The world's chaotic. There's problems everywhere. There's good and evil. There's bad things and good things happening on a daily basis. But we need to address the bad and pretend it's not there. Mm-hmm. Because if we just pretend it's not there, we don't ever address it and try to fix it. Now, as far as like how the Wolfpack started, like I was building this, getting it going. And in the beginning of like EXP, there used to be a policy in place that like, there was like an application and then the ICA where there's kind of a gap between it. And what happened was, so the ICA is like what commits you to our brokerage, and the application, which was what starts the process. Now people, when they sign, our agents, when they sign up to the company now, they come in on one, all happens at one time, but there used to be a gap like 5 days. And if there's a week, and it could be like a week. Now, you guys know what it's like when you come to EXP, you're excited. You're going to say you have 25 people on your phone. We sign that application, they go tell all 25 people I just joined EXP. Now, out of those 25 people, there's likely that someone else would have already joined. And what was happening was that they go to their friends or family and they'd be like, oh, I guess what? Their sister joined halfway across the country. Well, who did you join with? And I was competing against other brands. And there's one specifically, we won't give them any names or attention on here, but they're a different animal group. And so I was like, I just kept finding out so that they had built a brand. They had created excitement. There's a few teams that had excitement around a brand. Yeah. And it wasn't a brand that was built in traditional real estate, local team building, which is like, if I name myself the Connor Steinbrook team or something like Steinbrook Group, which would be typical to names. They had a collective group name. And then, so I was like, okay, I'm getting beat to this brand, but it wasn't just that there was a brand, there was a value proposition up and beyond what the company had, what EXP was providing. So they had built training and coaching on top of that brand. And so I realized that EXP is a starting point that we can build off of. So we all have the same starting point, but who cares the most and does the most for the partners after that starting line happens during the race is going to win it. So I realized I needed to create a brand, and part of the brand I was building before, so my partners above me had a family split, not to go too deep into it, but that brand was no longer one I could push, honestly. So I was at a point where I couldn't keep pushing the brand I was building. And also I knew I was competing against other brands. And so partly the way the Wolfpack came about was I grew up in Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas. And if you go to the internet, type in Plano West, you'll see that we were the Wolves. And so when I played sports, played all sorts of sports coming up through grade school through high school. And we had this mentality, let's run together, win together as a pack, not as a lone wolf. And so we can go farther as a group, not as an individual. And what I saw was there was a lacking at EXP where people were kind of all running around with the chickens like a head cut off. And so I knew that this in the team building world would have a good meaning behind it. Also, a wolf is a strong, proud animal that a lot of people respect. And the mentality behind a wolf pack is, let's say that you're a single wolf running out there. You can only look where your eyes are looking at one direction. So you have one point of direction, but you're in a 360-degree world where when you're in a wolf pack and you look at herding animals or anything like that, what do they always do? They sit where they're all looking different directions so that someone's always looking to see if you're being attacked. And so it all just kind of lined up. So that's kind of how I came about picking the name of the wolf pack. And then inside of it, we realized that along the way and along the journey that there was certain things that agents have attractions to as far as desires and goals and wants as far as what they want from a brokerage or partners that they can work with, which is EXP has great training tools and systems and has a lot of support there, but they didn't do a lot for real estate investing. A lot of agents want to be an investor. About 1 in 4 or 5 have rental properties, flip houses, or do short-term Airbnbs. So we filled in the vesting component. A lot of agents are heavy into social media. And so we all had a social media background. It's partly why our voice got out there. So we wanted to fill in, you got Mike's got a social academy and social media coaching and doing social media masterminds. And then the other thing is that there's also a big search and hunt for the right type of coaching as far as personal growth and self-education and self-image building. And there's a lot of that out on the internet where you're getting it from a lot of people. They're just rah-rahing other people's quotes and things that they just listened to. There's not a lot of people that went to the depths of hell and discovered it inside them and came out and taught it to others. So I had a very long journey to get to where I got to. And so a lot of what I do is I know how close I was to taking my own life at one point. And I know that if I got to that point, as far as dark as that can go to get to this point where I'm at now, and people, if they just see this outcome here, then they don't really know that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how bad it is, that they can come and get past that moment and still have a great life. And I think a lot of people have one bad adversity, pandemic, lost their job or whatever it is, and they give up. And I'm just here to tell people, you guys can be anything you want in the future if you don't lose that belief system. And so we kind of focus a lot on personal education, self-growth and mindset, and self-image building, social media, and then investing as 3 pillars of real estate that we focus on top of what a really great brokerage does already. And then the other component is the cultural building and the relationship side of things. I mean, you live in a different country, I live here. I have partners all around the world. And we wanted to build an environment for people, not just for the best in the world, which we have. We have the number 1 personal tracker in the world in the group. Last year, I was the number 2 growth leader on the planet at EXP. And we've got, Suman in 2022 is the number 2 production agent in the world. Mm-hmm. So we've got the top of the world in our group already, but that's great for them. That's great for but what about the average agent, the new agent coming in? What we wanted to do is create an environment for people that are starting new all the way up to the top of the world and anything and everything in between where they're welcome, and an inviting group where people share and help each other. So, and also some of these top achievers were not top achievers before they came here. Some of them were brand new agents, including myself, including Mike, including Suman. We were all, Mike was an agent before, but not in the team building side. This is really where he started. And Suman was kind of a brand new agent. I was an investor first. So we've created an upward mobility path where you can come in as a brand new agent, starting your career, come into a welcoming environment around these high performance leaders that started out just a little bit before you, and you can see the results and go back and see this. So we wanted to kind of create that global culture that I really hadn't seen done yet at the company. And so I think that's where a lot of people, once they find that out, they gravitate towards it and they want to be part of it. And then they're excited to also push it. I mean, you got your hat on, you and like other people wearing hats and clothes. I mean, I just watched, I think it was Natalie or a few other people posting stuff on social media, but they just made custom jerseys and all sorts of Wolfpack stuff. And I'm not bashing other companies, but you're not going to go the airport and see people wearing competitor clothes and stuff like that in real estate. In fact, they get that for Christmas present and hide in the closet. I'm just kidding. But
there's so many things in there I want to unpack, Connor. That is so, it's so wild. So there's so many aspects of that I want to unpack. You were saying, so Mike, you sponsored Mike and brought him in. I love the story about that, about how how you were persistent with Mike, and Mike tells a story about how, the first few times he wasn't into the EXP model. Now, also, you weren't the first one to approach him on EXP. There's a lot of people who are approaching him, and a lot of people approach other agents in the wrong way. So from what you just said, you're coming at it from a major value proposition of pretty well saying, I created this. I was an investor first, and then you created your social media around the investing to give value, and then you brought people in to teach them on that. So the premise, from what I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but and what I've seen and what attracted me so much was you guys lead with value, and it's almost backwards and counterintuitive to what most people think they should be doing. There's so many people who are scared to give away what they know because they think that people are going to run with it, or that it's going to somehow, that they're losing by sharing what they know. So I guess, so my question and kind of where I want to go is, did you know with Mike, did you know that he was going to be as big of a recruiter as he was? Did you see something in him, or was it just something that you were consistent with everybody and you just stayed on him as much as you stayed on everybody else? I'm very curious to know.
Yes and no. So I knew Mike had the ability to be successful, for one. So like I saw his work ethic through his social media content. So his IG stuff and how consistent he was. So there's what's called success traits in business that people have them or they don't. Consistency is one of them. Mental persistency is another one. Patience is another one. And so I knew he had the work ethic and the consistency to be successful. And I knew that he had already had results. So you could see his channels growing. He had already had some years where he was a top producer. So I knew he had a lot of potential. You never know what type of potential people have until they develop into it. And so I saw Mike as a kid. The analogy that I went to like Cuba and I was walking across like an empty sandlot and I hear the mitt getting hit and I look over and some kids throwing like 101, 103, but they're all over the place and the ball's getting thrown in the back and every now and then he throws a strike up the middle. So I knew he had the arm, but he needed to have some honing in and to get it dialed in. And I knew if he could and he could throw consistent strikes over the plate, he was going to go to the major leagues and he was going to win MVPs and that type of stuff. Now, this is, if you guys have great potential, you need to be able to harness that because some people never harness it and they waste a lot of potential and talent. Now, as I started working with them, which, a lot of what happened was like during the pandemics, everything was locked down and a lot of people were going crazy, but we worked together and really built during this time and we kept our mindset under control. But as he started to develop into the direction he was going, I realized he had every potential to be the number one in the world. And so I kept feeding that mindset to remind him, you're going to be the best in the world. You're going to be number one in the world, telling him things that most people won't tell you, or that a lot of times we don't tell ourselves. So success is about reminding ourselves that we can still keep going and be something when even though the evidence may show opposite of it. And that's why people quit things. They stop believing that the future outcome can be there because the present short-term reality is this doesn't look very, so when you look at great leaders and mothers and fathers and coaches, they're the ones that build the belief system in the other person or the team coming up when they don't have it in them long enough for them to find that belief and adopt it. And then once they truly believe they're that person and their thoughts align with the thoughts that you're helping them feed on, that is when they act off it and they become that. And so this is why you see like world champions. So like a lot of times, like, for example, you hear like Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson, and they're all people are like, I'm like the world's greatest. And they're saying these types of things. And people think, most people you'd ask, they'd think that happened after they won the world championship and they built this arrogance along the way. And now they're the world champion now in the world. No, those were the thoughts that they believed and adopted when they were in the dungeon mode and the ghost mode behind the scenes, when coming up in a little, like a Rocky mode, when nobody's watching it, they already knew it. They believed it. They put it on pen and paper. They knew that they were going to come. So I knew Mike was special as far as being a talented entrepreneur already coming in. But then along the way, there's in the ascent, as it started growing, I knew that he had the ability to be the number one person in the world. And then I drove those thoughts and belief systems and help plant those seeds and remind those seeds, water those seeds by reminding them over and over and over, speaking belief into them. And that's what you need to do with any partners or anybody that has potential greatness. But it's not just everybody, because like if they're not playing their part and they're not showing up and they're they're not putting the energy in, and then they don't have the ability. So once you find someone that has that inside them, you water it and you help them become that person. And then when they do become that person, they do the same for the next generation. And now you see he's pouring back into all you guys and sharing his journey and all the skill sets and what he's learning. He just went to Tony Robbins event, and he's spending all this money. So what he's learning, Tony Robbins does the same thing. He's picking up from other great leaders, and I'm not the only mentor he's going to learn from over the years. And so he's now, it's just like a parent to children. We learn from the people above us, we acquire skill sets, and we pass it on below. And that's how communities are built, culture's built, the world is really built. And right now we're in a reverse. The messaging is the reverse of what we need in this world. We need more great leaders developing the next generation. And that's really the problem in this country right now, and really the world, is we don't have enough strong voices. We have the wrong voices putting the wrong message through our societies. And that's why you're seeing everything erode. Whereas if you had more voices of strength, honor, respect, dignity, morals, values, stop screwing your partners and undermining people and taking shortcuts and all that, right? And all the stuff that you see out there, the future is going to be a better place to show up in.
The reason I wanted to ask that question, Connor, was just, to me, I think that is a pivotal moment in the wolf pack. I just find, like, between what you and Mike have done, I know I'm thankful. I know it's changed my life, and there's 3,200 other agents within the wolf pack. So it's like, I just find that just a crazy moment, even in the universe, of you staying persistent on him. And I was just wondering, like, if you were like, I know it. So I appreciate you answering that the way you did. Man, there's so many things I want to unpack. Your investor army. When did you start that? And what was the first investment that you kind of got into to make you want to start the investor army concept?
So basically, when I lost everything with online poker, I was living at home and I kind of went broke. I decided that I needed a new path in life. I was waiting for poker to come back, and then I realized it's never going to come back the way it was. So I needed a new path in life, and I knew I really didn't want to go get a job. And so I started researching, kind of different paths in life, asking people around, what they'd done. And I kind of went into insurance and real estate at the same time. So I got my insurance license, and I joined World Financial Group, WFG, which is where Ed Milet came from.
Oh, okay.
And so I just really didn't like the insurance space. I started building a little team, but I always saw the power of it, which is how I also identified the opportunity of EXP later when it showed up. So sometimes things you guys are doing today in business may not be what you're actually using in the short term, but you can apply later lessons and things that you learn in life later that you can apply going forward, and they spot opportunities and seize on moments in the future. So you're always learning and just have the awareness to see these things. But I really wanted to build residual income. I wanted an income stream that came in that I didn't have to work forever. Now, it's not because I don't want to work. I have no problem working hard, over long periods of time. But at some point, I wanted to have the life that I wanted with all the time to spend it, but also have money to spend it. So you can make $1 million a year through time trade or active income strategies, but as soon as your time stops, your income goes away. I wanted to build something that had a continuity of income to it. And so I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad and some other books, and I really wanted to build residual income. And so I wanted to go into rentals and start buying rental properties. Now, the problem is I joined like a big ripoff company, one of those online stage selling gurus, and put up like 35 grand, and they scammed me and took all my money. And then they kept trying to get more money from me after that, and not any help, and ended up really quickly in debt. And so what happened was I ended up watching YouTube videos on the internet for free. And then I was going to like local REI clubs, real estate investment clubs, for free with small local groups around me. So the first one was I learned from local mentors that gave me an education in close proximity in my personal business locally, but on a global scale, I was finding as many YouTube channels as I could of high-level investors on the internet, people doing like we talked before, finding people doing what you want to do. And I was coming across like people like Sean Terry, and I was watching like John Cochran from System Saturday. I was watching that one, like Cody Sperber, and a lot of these people, are still around. Yep. And so I was learning, and there's a whole bunch of online mentors. So I was learning from them. And then also at the time, I'd run out of money. And this is what led me to social media. I'd run out of money in my business. And what's cool about the world we live in, social media, now even AI, is you don't need money really to build a business. You need time and work ethic and goals that you're never going to quit on. And so I was watching free YouTube videos, didn't have to pay anybody. So going on the internet for free because someone's giving it out for free. Now, obviously, some of them have value propositions behind it. They want to buy stuff, but they're still giving it out for free on the front side. I was teaching myself how to build WordPress websites and do SEO optimization. And I started building my own websites here in DFW. And so I built the #1 ranking websites in DFW for some of the biggest keywords at the time, like Sell My House Fast Dallas, We Buy Houses Dallas, some of the biggest keywords. And I did that all by myself, watching, free channels, learning how to do this. And then I was able to start doing, generating leads to the internet. And I was also going to local networking events and started doing what's called wholesaling houses. So I started out wholesaling, and then I moved into flipping properties, and then I started buying rentals. Then I went into creative financing, creating owner finance notes, selling notes, buying land, mobile homes, and all sorts of different things in the investment world. Now, along the way, I realized I needed to create more attention. Also, to pay it forward, I said I'm going to create a channel called Investor Army. So I was grateful that I watched all these people that were just like me. So when you're going to like these big events, they're on stage, they seem untouchable. But for some reason, I saw a lot of these people on the internet as just normal business owners, just like myself, and they were getting thousands of views on their videos. And I'm like, I spent how much money with direct mail to get my phone to ring a few times, and these guys are getting 5,000, 10,000 views a video. And I'm just like them. They were born in this world too, and I'm here too. I can do this too if I just get outside my comfort zone. And so at the same time, also, I had a lot of people asking me questions about my investment business, how I became successful and how I was doing what I was doing. But it's a lot of time one-on-one. There's no leverage to it. And so let's say I have to explain like how financing works on rentals and stuff. And so I was like, I'm just going to start creating videos once, host them on a free YouTube platform. And then when people ask me the question, instead of me having to explain it, I'm just going to send the video. I'm going to save my time. And so as a combination of leveraging my time and trying to help more people by just answering questions I had commonly when I went around to local events speaking, and then also understanding I'm going to pay it back and pay it forward because I learned from a lot of people on the internet that helped me for free that I was never able to meet in person, thank in person. Some of them I have, some I haven't. And so I was like, I'm just going to do this to pay it forward. And then I knew also on the selfish side of things, if you build a big enough attention from anything, you can sell shoes, you can sell watches, you can sell houses, you can sell insurance, whatever you want. Right. And I knew I needed attention, and business is about creating attention and then monetizing in some way, whatever and you monetize it by providing value of some type, saving people time, money, or emotions in some way, and people will pay you for that. And so it all kind of came into a head all at once. And the thing about Investor Army was I was an investor, but also I wanted to build a collective group. So when I create brands, like when I create the Wolfpack brand, Wolfpack is a family mentality. The Army is a family mentality. Let's have everybody in one cohesive cultural mindset that we're all in this together and we're all working together. And so I've always had that mentality when I kind of chose names for brands and things like that of when I'm doing that type of stuff. But that's kind of how it all played out. And then what happened later was Mike was up in Canada, and he was working with investors and representing a lot of investors as clients in his production business. So he's actually watching my YouTube channel, and we ended up getting connected. And so, because he was trying to learn the investment business, and then we ended up. So I had a little bit more success on YouTube at the time. Now he's definitely surpassed me on that, but at the time he was doing a lot more on Instagram, and there should still be on the internet. We did each other's podcasts, and I did a podcast on his channel about YouTube, and he did a podcast on my channel about Instagram, which developed that relationship. So you can see how partners in this world we live in now can connect across the world. But so I never intended that to happen. I never intended to come to EXP, but just the chain of events and the life patterns and how you look for opportunities as time moves forward by just being active and showing up every day. I was started out in the insurance space. I saw WFG and identified that the power of team building was there. And then I started an investment YouTube channel that connected me to Mike up in Canada. And then he was watching my investment information, and it all just plays out. And this is how life works. And it's kind of like Steve Jobs saying, like, you never see how the dots are connected on your journey up. But when you look back and see how everything unfolded, it all kind of connected along the way. But so just show up and be intentful about your actions on a daily basis. Do as much as you can. And don't get too upset if you're not getting to where you're going to right away. It took me years to have success. And then eventually the skill sets and the people that come into your life from all sorts of different directions will happen over time naturally. And then as long as you don't give up and quit, which is why people never have their goals, not because people can't achieve them, they quit before they did achieve them. And at some point you will have them. But that's kind of how it all played out.
I love that. I have another deep question for you if you're ready for it. Do you believe in free will, Connor? Do you believe in free will? Do you think things are already lined up, that the way things happen, they were already meant to happen, or that we make them happen?
That's a good question. I do believe we have free will, and but I do believe certain things are guided to happen by another force. You know, I am a Christian, so I believe that God has a hand in everything that we do. I never push my faith on anybody unless they kind of ask me about it. But I lost my faith for a long. My dad's a Presbyterian minister. I grew up in the church, and then I ran wild through my teen and early college years, as wild as you can get. Parties, girls, all craziness, poker, and all that type of stuff.
All the fun stuff.
And then, yeah, and then when I kind of hit rock bottom, I kind of had this mindset where God had abandoned me. And at one moment, when I was at the darkest moment of my life, I just realized, it just came over me. I was like, God didn't abandon me. And that's not why I have the life I have and why I'm suffering so much. I abandoned God. And so I said, what if I start praying again? And so I did. I started praying at that moment. And that's one of the first starting points where life really started to change for me. And then that's when personal education and Napoleon Hill and all that came. So that there's a precursor to a lot of that. So take that for however you want to see it. But I do believe that we have our own free will to make our decisions. God gives us this. Mm-hmm. But if we make the decisions under the worldly laws that, you know, that we're seen to have given us, that we are able to achieve the outcomes that could be achieved going those directions. So like, for example, like a lot of things that people don't see in business that I did that nobody saw. I don't even know if we talked about this in one of our calls. Like there's a deal that like I had a wholesale buyer come by, and I didn't even think the house was going to get sold. And I had someone go through the house, offered me full price. And then another one called me right after it and offered me a few $1,000s more. And I said, okay, I'll accept your offer. And I didn't have a contract in place. And so what happened after that was another buyer came back and was like, well, I'll actually pay more for that. It was like $3,000 more. Now it's still like $50,000+ in debt this time. And like, I needed the money. I'm living at home, still trying to figure this stuff out. And my life was in chaos. And I had the opportunity to, at that moment, go sign a contract with someone else, pocket the $3,000 and move on. Like I bet most everybody would do at that moment. And I'm not trying to sound holier now. I'm just saying these are the decisions I believe that could, to answer this question, that led me to this moment where I don't think if I had done these types of things, I would be here. So what I did was I reached out to that person and said, hey, I got another offer and I'm going to hold my word to you. And so what I did was I ate the $3,000 and sold it to the price when I gave my word. So I believe the actions and the things that we do behind the scenes that nobody ever sees, and some of these stories I don't ever tell, some of these things, I used to do these things all the time, even if it was detrimental to myself. I believe that I was demonstrating to myself as well as God that I deserve to have a future that other people would want to, you know, be following in suit. And would you, if you're the one that promotes the world, put more people like someone that does that up in front of the world, or more people that does the other side and screws people and scams people? So I believe that we have free will, so we can choose what we want to do in these spots. And I believe that as we do the right thing and choose the right thing to do, that helps not just ourselves, but everybody around us. So first we fix our own life, then we fix the life of our family, then our friends, our extended family, then our friends, then our local community, then hopefully we move into the state and the world. And I do believe that if you act within the right way and do the right things with your choices with free will, that the future, you have different outcomes in the future, different, maybe multiverses, maybe not that far, but you have different outcomes that you can show up in. And I believe that there are, different lines that could be playing out. But the door that you choose, like that book that you go, those books that you read, if you open up this door and you go down the path that goes like left, or you go down the right path, and then you get to the next crossing in the road, the decisions that you make along the way depend on where you're going to show up in the future. And so even though we have free will, I believe that there's a hand that stops us. Even if we want to go a certain direction, that if we get out of control, that hand will stop us and put a roadblock, no matter how hard you want to be or become someone, or how hard you want to do. If you're not living in the right way, I do believe that there is some restrictions to getting certain places. So it's kind of really complex to answer, but that's kind of my take on it.
I love it, man. No, it's definitely complex, but I think that question required a complex answer. And I was thinking about this last night. I was thinking about some questions I wanted to ask you. And I love that you mentioned the multiverse, because that was something that like ran through my mind. And it's like, I wonder how many different realities there are of the way that I could live too, or the way that you could live. Like you said, it's like, if you didn't make the decisions to change your life when you did, and you stayed on that, in that dark path and that dark time of your life, it's like, where would you be now? Would you be here? And is that a different reality that maybe you never came out of, but you connected yourself to the dimension where you are now, but it's through all those choices. And And I've been thinking more and more about this. I mean, I'm 30 years old, so I'm still kind of going through all these things in my head, trying to figure out the way that I believe life is. But one thing that I've been very kind of thoughtful on is, and that I'm finding to really resonate with me, is like universal feedback. And that's the way that I'm framing it, is like, I'm judging a lot of things off of like universal feedback. And it's because there's a lot of noise that comes from what we do, but it's like, I'm judging it from the other people that I'm interacting with. Am I having good interactions on a day-to-day basis? Am I getting majority good feedback from things that I'm doing? And now I'm not sure if this is a good way to even try to live life, but a book that I recently read is The Four Agreements. Have you read that?
I've not read that one.
Okay. So The Four Agreements is pretty well, the whole premise of the book is so there's four agreements, and it's saying that there was an old tribe that lived this way, and it was this very successful tribe of people, and what they did was, so the four agreements, the first one, be impeccable with your word. So just like you said there in that story, you decided to stick to what you were saying and not go for the extra amount of money. Even though you needed that, you decided to be impeccable with your word in that moment. And then that kind of creates like a confidence within yourself that you're somebody that when you say something and you speak it, that's the actions and that's the way that the universe is going to unfold. And you're going to do your best to make sure that you stay to that commitment. The second and third are never assume and don't take anything personally. And those two there were extremely powerful. Like, I just read this book like 4 months ago, and I wish I would have read it 25 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess, when I was 25 years old. I feel like I really could have used it 5 years ago. But everything that you just kind of said really resonates with that book. And then the last one is just do your best. Is just do your best. So if you live in a way where you are impeccable with your word, you never assume that anybody knows what you're thinking or that knows what you need. You need to go out and ask it. We had this conversation before. You were saying like anything that you ask for, that's when you may get it. But if you don't ask, you're never going to get it. And then never take anything personally, and then always do your best. And if you live with those four things, then like, it's just a great model to structure your life off of. And I've been doing that. And the universal feedback, I feel like, has been significantly better than the way I was operating before.
But you're right at the age where all this starts happening. 30 is a big one. And you start really kind of, what am I? Why am I here? What is life about? You start having enough people have wronged you and you've wronged others, and you felt pain, the emotional sides of the ups and downs of life. And you really start humanizing the world. And so like, I'd urge you guys to understand that there's a long path and there's a short path to success. And as I had my journey, I saw a lot of people successful financially, at least, right? So there's lots of different ways you can measure success. And I saw a lot of people show up with the same bank accounts, but not the same self-image and the enjoyment of life and how they had respect for themselves and who they thought they were and how they saw themselves. And so by making those decisions, even though it took a lot longer for me to get to where I got to, I still got to where I got to. But every single day I get to look in the mirror and say, I didn't steal from my partners. I didn't stab my partners in the back. I didn't undermine the behind the scenes. I didn't cheat people. I didn't, break the rules. I didn't have to do these things to get to top. I did it with honor and respect for myself and respect for others. And I played within the rules and I still got there. And so I get to look in the mirror every day and look in that mirror and say, I respect myself. Where people that do cheat people and lie and scam and cheat their way to the top, they can't look in the mirror and say that. So even though they have the same bank account, they don't have the same life fulfillment. And what you see is there's two different types of people in the world. The ones that get to where they get to and they're loving, caring, and they seem to have this blessed life and they're always so happy no matter what adversity comes around them. They have a clear conscience. And then you see the other ones that are bitter and angry and always upset. And it's like you have everything in the world, but you're frustrated because they have all the toys, they have all the financial stuff and all materialism, but they don't have the respect for themselves because they know they scam people and did it the wrong way. So I'd urge you guys on your journey here, don't think the financial success is what you're seeking. You're seeking self-respect and self-image. And once you get there, you can't ever go back and change that. Now you can change it midpoint in your life and really try to make amends for it. And some people do, and they do throughout their life, but many don't. And they live a very lonely, very frustrated life. And I've seen this because I grew up around a lot of nonprofits and also, a lot of people that were successful around me. So that's one. And then just like, ultimately, once you make decisions like that, where you do the honorable thing and you build a trust in yourself that I know that I can trust myself to do this. There has to be others out there that act this way too. and it builds a trust in others. And that's how a community is built. But if you can't even trust yourself to do the right thing, then how can you trust anybody around you to do the right thing? And if there's a world with no trust and everybody is willing to do these things, you're always at risk. You're always looking over the shoulder. Who's going to stab me in the back? You're always in, fight, you're always ready to fight people and, get revenge, and you're lacking of forgiveness. And it really is important for you guys to understand. It's not just the stuff that you're after and the lifestyle that you're after. You're going to live in your mind for the rest of your life until your life's gone. So you may as well purify it and protect it and do things in the right way. And honestly, I'd rather have less money, but a more peaceful mindset. And I mean, you see people that are super successful in the mind and how happy they are, but they don't have any money. I mean, think about like monks and all sorts of different examples of life, and people that are not seen as financially successful, but I guarantee you would enjoy their life more than some of these people that are billionaires that literally you would not want to have their life. And, but yeah, it's important that most people are not talking about, and more people should.
I love what you said there about you are going to be in your own mind forever. You're going to be in your own mind forever, right? So it's like being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I the person that I say I'm being? Can I sleep good tonight knowing that I gave it my all? And that's why I love that book. And that's why I said I wish I would have read that 5 years ago, because it's like, I feel like it's what I needed 5 years ago, starting in business. And the building confidence with yourself, and even just doing like the 75 hard thing right now. This is my second time doing it. And each time I find my confidence shoots through the roof when I'm doing it, because I'm following a strict routine and I'm constantly doing what I say I need to do. And it makes me so much more productive. And it's like, this is just a good way to live. I know it's fairly time consuming and energy draining, but it creates a lot of energy and time because you get more disciplined on what you need to do. So it's like, it's almost like so many things in life are counterintuitive, right? Like the more energy that we spend in exercising, the more energy we actually have to give back to everybody else. And another thing that I want to say there was, you were saying when people don't trust themselves, and I love that you said this. You said something along the lines of, if you can build trust in yourself, then you can start to trust others. I've never thought of that before. And if you don't trust yourself, then you don't trust others. So it's like everybody's almost projecting themselves onto others, right? And I think that's a big thing in life. It's like you hear the thing about like people that are in relationships, and if they think the other spouse is cheating, normally it's because they're cheating. So they're like, they must be doing the same thing. And it's like this like weird projection that everybody does. And I love what you said there about if you can build trust with yourself, you can build trust with other people, man. That is so impactful.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, like you're talking about, you're consistent on 75 hard. So once you complete 75 hard, what does that mean? It means you knew that you could do it. You showed up every single day, which means you held your promise to yourself. You said, I'm gonna stick to a plan. I set a goal in place, a future destination I'm gonna show up in, and then you did. But let's say that you made it 7 days and then you stopped for 3 days. And you try to start again, you made 10 days and stop for 2 days. Well, in business or building a family, in life in general, or friends, and everything's better. I mean, you were in the military.
Yep.
What if you adopted a belief system because I'm inconsistent, I'm not willing to show up, and I'm not doing it? Then you're going to project that onto everybody else. And then now when it comes into life, when you're taking risks, you're risking your time, money, and emotion. You'll never take the ultimate risk because you don't truly believe everybody's going to show up and will even show up when they need to show up, because you never showed up yourself. And so our actions internally that we take on a daily basis set the meter or metric on how we view others, whether we know these people or not. But if we can't trust ourselves to hold our promises to ourselves, and we trust ourselves more than anybody else in the world, and we still don't hold our promise to ourselves, then how can we believe anybody else is going to hold a promise to us? And then when you live in a world where you don't believe other people can be trusted or hold their promises to you, it's a very lonely spot, and it's a very defeating mindset. And then that compounds into all of the problems in life and relationships and all sorts of issues. So everything that's built long-standing comes from your self-image and your self-esteem for yourself. And that comes from first doing the things that are tough to do, knowing that you're going in to sacrifice something to do them. Time, waking up early, going out, to catch a big bass even. Like, I know I'm going to get sunburned. I know I'm going to get hurt, but I'm going to go through that and I'm going to show up anyways. And then by doing that over and over and over and fighting that adversity, you build the respect for yourself, and your self-image, your self-esteem goes up, leading you to take higher risks in life with relationships, bringing people into it. Because what if, and if you guys are out there cheating on people, how can you ever have a serious relationship? Because the second it gets to have started going down a serious path, they're going to be cheating on me. Oh, well, I don't want to commit because I can't trust, and it all just stems from there. So everything starts from your internal choices first, that you're going to look at the world around you and how you're going to look at it.
Which has been a major theme throughout this entire podcast. You said today, showing up consistently for yourself, then it helps you show up consistently for others. I want to ask you, because you've gone through some very high highs and some low lows, like you said. What is some advice or maybe some tips that you'd give to people when they're on their lows to continue to show up? What is some points maybe when people stop believing in themselves? Maybe they don't have a mentor around them at that point to give them encouragement. What do you think would be good advice for anybody that's just looking to find a reason to keep showing up?
Well, a lot of people say in their mind, well, once I have this, or when I'm in that spot, then I'll show up, or then I'll be consistent. The things that you say you're going to do in the future, if those things happen, will never happen unless you can do it in the deepest, darkest spots of your life. So happiness is something that people pursue, and they pursue what they think will make them happy. If they have the perfect relationship, if they have the house or the car. And one day I realized that my thoughts control my feelings. And so we give the analogy, let's say I called you up on a call on this bad April Fool's joke. And I said, your mother's passed away, your friend passed away. And what's going to happen? The thought of that, the belief of the thought, just the belief that thought is real, is going to body physically break down. So our thoughts actually trigger the feelings in our body. But it's bad April Fool's joke because his best friend's on the other line and just joking. Hey, just kidding, man. It's a joke. Doesn't matter whether it's a joke or real. Your body reacted the same way at that moment. So what this means for you guys is your thoughts actually cause how you feel. And so if you're not happy when everything's going bad for you, or you're not content with your life when you're broke, bad relationships, physical pain in the body, and all sorts of things, you're never going to be happy when you have all these things. It's an illusion of the mind. And that's why I'm saying, like, all these people that are super successful, they're rich. It's still a mindset issue. It's not that the stuff around them, they have everything they want. It's the thought process. And one day you realize that, and then you start working on how to be content and be happy where you're at. But because no boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife's ever going to make you happy. No kids coming into your life is going to make you happy. No financial success, no attainment as far as a result. If you cannot figure out how to live in your mind and be happy at the worst moment, then you're never going to have it at the highest moment. Now, what happens is when you have that ability to control and you have this awareness and this awakening moment, and you can't control at the lowest moment, that control over that and that understanding is what drives you to have the future success. And once you understand your belief systems, we hear people, if you don't believe it, you can't achieve it. That's Napoleon's whole thing, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So the conception is the idea that they hold in the mind. The belief is the feeling and emotional involvement in the belief, and then the achievement is the actual manifestation process later in life that you actually have it. And so I realized that I'd also been through a couple cycles. Mm-hmm. I had success and lost it. I've been up and down. I realized when I'm on top and I'm on the bottom, it's about the same. It's weird for people, but like if you've not been on top and on bottom, you can only assume through what's your own belief of what you're projecting of what it would be like. But you need to listen to other people's stories. If I'm like, I've been up here and I've been here and back and forth. It's the same, but your mindset's the only thing that you can control, and you can control it when you're at rock bottom. You can control it when you're at top. Sometimes it's actually harder to control it when you're on top. And there's a lot. So like, there's a lot more stress when you actually have something, because you can potentially lose it as compared to when you never had it. You're already where you're at. Worse is worse, I'm staying where I'm at. So it's like that saying, it's like, it's better to have it and never lost it. Probably not. I can guarantee that's not, because I had a really great life and I lost it. But the point is, it comes from the thought first. While you're wherever you're at, it's a starting point. And once you realize you're writing your future with the thoughts that you think, it's the paintbrush, of the future that you want. It doesn't matter how bad your situation is. Andrew Carnegie came from poverty. He became the wealthiest man in the world. Like all sorts of people but you have to decide what you want. Do you really want financial success? What if that's not your goal? What if your goal is community success and you want to help your community? What if you want, really big into animals and you want to help, abandoned animals? And and build a dog shelter, like whatever you want. You have to have the thought first that you want it, the intellectual. So everything goes from an intellectual to emotional to physical having. The intellectual conception in the mind, meaning I have the thought, the idea, and then I'm going to have enough emotion involved in it so that when risk and adversity and all these problems come up on the journey, that I don't back off. When you really need it as bad as, like Eric Thomas says, as bad as you need to breathe, when that adversity comes up, you'll push past it. But if you don't emotionally involve in what your goal or your future outcome is enough, when the adversity comes up, you're going to sit down, you're going to back off. But if you have the idea conceptually in the mind, whatever you can conceive, and then emotionally involve in it through the belief system, I believe no matter what comes in my way, I'm going to push through it. And I want it more than anything, even if eat, sleep, never do it again, whatever. Then eventually, if you don't break that pattern and you show up every day with consistency, meaning I show up every day, move the ball one more yard down the road, eventually I'm going to get to the end of the road and you're going to have what you want. But most people lose belief in themselves and they start giving themselves reasons to quit. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough time. This wasn't meant for me. This was meant for someone else's. I can tell you guys, I did not come from anything special. Now I have special parents as far as the belief systems that they gave me, but like, as far as like a hand up in financial success and things like that, like it wasn't good. I want a trust fund baby. I didn't do anything illegal to get here. I can tell you there is a path for the average person to get to where they want to. And I used to have that doubting thought. I used to always think, I was struggling for years, spinning my wheels in debt. And for years I was in debt. Working every day is brutal. And every day I wanted to quit. And I have to keep saying, like, did all these people literally cheat? Like, are they drug dealers? Are they, did they have, how did is they doing something enough? Is it actually possible to do it the right way and to become one of those people? Or am I like in this weird multiverse where I'm just stuck in this punishment world where am I going to spend 10 years working and show up at the same destination in the same spot? And I can tell you, I used to sit outside the movie theater when I couldn't afford, even get snacks and stuff. And there's all these wealthy houses or nice houses owned by wealthy people. And I'd look across those neighborhoods before I go in the movie theater. It's the only thing I could afford to do every week. I'd work 7 days straight. And on Sunday nights, I'd go to the movie theater. And I was having to sneak in like Walmart brand snacks in the dollar movie theater, even though they're like $20 to go to the dollar movie theater now. And I'd look across there and I just realized that's too many people. They couldn't have all done it. They couldn't have all inherited the money. They couldn't have all cheated. They couldn't all be unethical. So somehow they figured it out. And if I just keep going the right direction, I will figure it out. And then I didn't have to go to the dollar movie theater anymore. And so what happened was eventually I became successful and I'd still go to the movies on Sunday nights while everybody else was at home. I'd be the only one in the movie theater Sunday night, like 10 o'clock for the most part. I remember seeing like Creed or something. I was like the only one in it, like 1,000-person movie theater. And I could stand up and jump around because everybody else had to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
And that's the life you get if you keep going. But I had to, about to get emotional myself because I'm remembering those moments because I'm feeling the thoughts right now. That's when you have, you break down, you cry, you have goosebumps. That is the thought that you're emotionally involving in. But I can tell you guys, no matter what you want in life, you can have it. It's not cliche. You just don't believe it enough and you're not acting on enough for a consistent and long enough period of time. That's why you don't have it yet. And then you stop. And you start and stop and start and stop. And then you never drive long enough in the right direction to show up in the destination. So you just have to keep believing what you want. Consistency over time. Don't let anybody else, friends, family, the media, the evil in the world get in your way. And you will show up at where you want to at some point if you never stop.
You give such in-depth answers. I think that response right there could change so many people's lives. Man, that is so powerful, Connor. That is so powerful. It appears that you have a really good work-life balance. This is where I want to end it on.
It appears.
Okay. Yeah, no. And that's why, I guess, is that a fair statement? Do you find you have a good work-life balance? Is that something, or what advice would you give to people that want to try to create a good work-life balance for themselves while still accomplishing their goals? And is that even possible?
Yes and no. So I believe that I balance my life a lot better than most do. I don't think there is balance like any. So first off, like you guys are looking at social media and like glimpses of people's lives. Like my house gets dirty. Just like everybody else, I have to do my laundry and clean the house and all this type of stuff. And I slack on things. And a lot of times people, so like, for example, let's just look at the business side of things first. In the beginning of a business, I believe there should be no balance. I mean, like I had no balance, like straight up, like people think I'm kidding. I worked 1,100 days straight without a day off. And now I guess that's like a flex now. Like when I did that, guys, I was like terrified I was going to go into bankruptcy. It's like if I throw you in the pool and say swim as long as you can, is the analogy I give, you're probably going to swim until the moment that they have to pull you out. But I promise you, if I threw you off the cruise ship in the ocean, you're going to swim longer than that. So, so there is no balance in the beginning. So that's basically why I worked 1,100 days straight. So I worked basically for 5, 6, 7 years nonstop. Now I did that with the understanding that there'd be balance for the other things I wanted to achieve later. For example, now I get to, you guys see my boat and all this type of stuff, and I get to go catch these big fish. Well, that was a childhood goal that I want to be a professional bass fisherman. I know it's so weird for a lot of people, but it's like when people are like putting on like, I want to be an astronaut or a rocket scientist, and I want to be a professional bass fisherman. So now because of business and entrepreneurship, I can go back later in my life and chase these goals. Now I have a little bit more time. Now I still don't have a lot of time. I still work really, really long hours, but I do what's called time compression, 2-for-1s. And so you cannot do two mental activities at the same time, but you can combine a mental and a physical activity at the same time. Yes. So for example, I cannot read a book and do this podcast at the same time. I cannot be reading while I'm talking. But what I can do is while he's running, he can be running, but he can listen to a podcast or an audio. So you can combine a mental and physical activity. So I try to have 30-hour days is kind of the mentality I take into this. So let's say that I'm going to go to the gym for 1 hour over here, and then I come back and listen to a podcast. That's 2 hours. But if I combine those activities, I'm getting a 2-for-1. So I had a 25-hour day. So when I go fishing, I'm not just getting, a 2-for-1. I'm actually getting a 4-to-1 is how I look at it, because I'm getting the physical side for one. Now, when I'm out there, I'm thinking I'm planning my day, I'm auditing my day. If I go in the morning, I'm planning my day in my mind of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to move throughout my day, or I'm going at the end of it, what happened in the day. Now I'm also getting my hobby time, my leisure time. So I'm doing what I want to do. So I'm not just going, to, play a video game for something like that. I'm doing all these at once. And then I'm also getting a physical activity that is needed for my health, because I had a lot of health issues from sitting in a chair all the time, playing online poker. So one of the things I need to do is stand up and have my back and hips. So like I'm going through basically rehab. I'm keeping, my physical body in check. I'm hitting a physical goal. I'm hitting my hobby goal, and I'm hitting, the mental side. So I'm compressing things all at once. So you can have 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s, and possibly 4-for-1s when you really look at how your activities are done. And so the balance is everybody has only 24 hours a day. So you have to combine activities. Now, if you're completely focused on your business, guess what's going to happen? You're going to neglect relationships and friends and family and things like that. But then when you go away from your business and you're spending too much time with friends and family, you're going to always be one foot in the office thinking about you're neglecting clients, your business, you're going to get set back. This is a balancing act throughout your life, and nobody masters this. There is no such thing as full balance. And if you stress yourself out in the belief that you're trying to achieve something that's not attainable, it's going to increase the stress on you, and you're going to be chasing a unicorn that can't happen anyway. So just realize all you can do is what Art Williams will say, but do all you can do and find what you want. Do you want the relationships? Do you want the health? Do you want, the gym, the business accolades, and then figure out what you want most, and then make that, you're going to have to success takes a lot of focus on one, but also know that you're not just giving up on all the others. Especially financial success can give you the path to have these other things later in life. You can have better doctors. You can have, I just watched someone assuming right before this, I was watching, he had a chiropractor come to his house, and he's got his like 6-year-old daughter doing chiropractic activity at his house. You can have, if you give up time today in that non-balanced window, I can have a chef come to my house and cook my meals. I can have someone come to my house and cut my hair. I order Uber Eats like every day. I don't have to leave my house, and so there's balance. There's no balance in the beginning of a business, but it leads to balance and the ability to have balance in other areas of your life later. But it's kind of a weird thing, but you're going to have no balance for a while if you really want to win at the highest level. Now, if you want to make a good income, you can still work really hard, but if you want like a really big life, you're going to have to do a really big effort and sacrifice to get there in the beginning.
Love it, man. It's like the short-term sacrifice for the long-term reward. But the thing is that short-term is actually, like you said, 11,000 days. Or what was that, 1,100?
1,100, yeah, a little over 3 years.
1,100. That doesn't sound like a short-term sacrifice. That sounds like a long-term sacrifice for a lot of people, right? They think, oh, working that many days in a row, that's crazy. But it's seeing past that.
So the reason why you think that is because you can't do that currently right now. Like, how much can you bench right now? 100 pounds? Okay, well, go bench press 300. You're not even going to try it because you know you can't do it. You don't know what you can become in the future. So working 1,000 days straight seems impossible, or seems like a burden, or seems too difficult. But when you, let's say, like when I started, because I've been way out of shape in my life, I got like 60, 70 pounds overweight. When I started running again, I was like, I'm just going to go run a mile. At one point, I could run 5 miles pretty easily when I was in sports. And then I was like, I'm just going to go run a mile. Literally, I probably made it like barely over a quarter mile. I literally couldn't even do it. But what happened was I ran a little bit further. And we understand this with our physical body, that eventually if you keep running, you build up your conditioning, that you can get to where you can run a marathon, or even more. Now it's not that you're just running a marathon. Now you're cutting off how fast they can do it and cutting down the time. Now, the reason why people don't think that they can work that many days in a row, or that often, or that many hours, is because they don't believe they can do it, because they can't at that time. But you can work your way up to it. So what I did was I just started working 1 day all day, and then 2 days all day. And as you start to do this, this is like you going from running a half a mile to a mile, to now you can run 2 miles, to now 3 miles. Once you get up to the point where you're conditioned, like people are like, well, how, do you not burn out? Well, I'm not going to burn out running a mile. I mean, if I can run a marathon. So once you build your mental conditioning up and your physical conditioning up, your health and your body, your mind and body work together, you will build up that conditioning, guys, to a point where you see these entrepreneurs around you, they work like 12, 16, 18-hour days. Like, oh my gosh, I can never do that. You're not conditioned to do that. If you conditioned yourself to do that, eventually it's not going to be a big deal. You will be able to work those long days. And then it's not just it's more of a decision to do so. But if you understood that and you're patient, after a year in the gym, you're going to look a lot better. After a year in the mental gym, in the conditioning gym, you're going to get to where like a long day is not going to burn you out. So like, I really don't get burnout. And like, I hear people saying like, I mean, obviously I get frustrated. I would say it's not burning out. I'd say I get annoyed with certain things and problems I deal with from time to time, but like never where like, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to quit. Like, I can't do it like that. I don't even have that in my mindset, like ever. Like, I really don't. But I do get like super annoyed at certain things and stuff like that. But just know that you can condition yourself, mind or body, at any point by enough repetition and pushing against resistance and sacrifice for enough long time, for long enough amount of time, that eventually anything that anybody else is doing around you, you can do too.
This went better than my best expectations. Thank you so much, Connor. Thank you so much for your time today, man. You have so much insightful depth, and I am so honored to have been able to sit and talk to you for how long has it been? Almost an hour and a half?
Yeah, that's another one of Napoleon's right there on the wall. Number 4, going the extra mile. You render service more than what you were. Yeah, you do one more. You render more service than you were asked to do, and life's going to reward you in a disproportionate amount. 100%. Just believe in yourself, guys. Ultimately, the whole world's trying to make you not believe in yourself. That's a whole longer conversation. You're going to come through a crazy election year here, and there's going to be a lot of that pushing on you. Do not listen to noise. It does not matter who. I could care less who wins this presidency. Honestly,
it doesn't matter.
Freaking like I want your life is your life. Mm-hmm. And I do not believe a president controls your future. I believe your mindset and whatever your belief system is, I believe God does. And so act in a way that you believe you're being watched, whether people are watching you or not, because I believe we are, and you'll be rewarded in the future for how you act in private. But other than that, I hope this helps me, guys, and I'll see you.
Thank you, man. That was unbelievable.